So today we're going to continue studying comparing and ordering rational numbers, which is a word we did not use yesterday. So this is still chapter 5, lesson 5, and this is the second part of this lesson. So what is a rational number? It sounds so intimidating and sophisticated. It's not. A rational number is just anything that can be written as a fraction. In sixth grade, it's a majority of the numbers you know how to deal with. There's maybe, I could probably count on one hand numbers that are not rational that you understand how to deal with. Rational numbers really come into play in seventh and eighth grade in high school. But it's a big word and you're dealing with them, so we might as well use it. All right, some things that are rational numbers: decimals, fractions, mixed numbers, things with positive and negative signs, the counting numbers that you learned way back in elementary school. Pretty much all of the things that you know how to deal with are a rational number. All right, so don't let that confuse you. You probably could do this lesson without having to watch this video, but we're going to do it anyway just to be sure. Okay, so some tips for you when you go to do this. I always encourage you to compare positive versus negative first. It is the easiest, most straightforward way to put a greater than or less than sign in between two numbers. Sometimes you don't get lucky and they're both negatives or they're both positives and that trick doesn't work. Okay, so then I would encourage you to compare the whole number part before you worry about either the fractions or the decimals. Because if you've got 5 point something compared to 6 point something, I don't care what the fraction stuff is, the decimal part, compare the 5 and the 6, easy cheesy. But sometimes that doesn't work out either. All right, sometimes you're going to be given fractions and decimals that you're asked to compare. So in that case, I would encourage you to get it all into the same form. Usually decimals are going to be the fastest. That is what most sixth graders will opt for because you can grab a calculator and switch it real quickly. Not as quick with the fractions. There's nothing wrong with fractions. Sometimes they'll be obvious, but most of the time you're going to switch to decimals. Like this problem. So we're going to compare negative 51 hundredths and negative 8 fifteenths. Let's go down our tip list. Do I have positive versus negative? Unfortunately not. They're both negatives. Do I have any whole numbers that I could worry about? Nah, this one's 0, and this is really 0 also. So I'm stuck comparing the fractional parts. Now, they're not in the same form, so let's get them there. I could make this be 51 over 100, but then I'd have to find a common denominator, and I'm just not in the mood to do that. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and I'm going to divide. Don't worry about the negative sign just yet, but I'm going to divide. Remember, it's top, divide, bottom. Just that simple in that order. And I get negative 0.53 repeated. I had to put the negative sign on there because it's really in the original. So this is negative 0.53 repeated. So we've got two negatives. If I was going down my number line, right, let's say here's 0, and here's negative 0.1, here's negative 0.2, here's negative 0.3, negative 0.4, negative 0.5. Right here would be negative 0.51, just a little bit past it. And then right next to that is going to be negative 0.53 repeating. So which one of those two is less? Remember, left is less. This one. So I would read that as negative 51 hundredths is greater than negative 8 fifteenths. We always go back to the original. Now, we just said less. Well, yeah, the 0.53 repeating, this is the lesser number. So the pointy part goes to it. But if I was to read this problem, like I would read a book, the open part comes first. So I speak the words greater than. Okay? Now, let's say you're not a big fan of number lines, or you really just don't feel like drawing it all out. You can do something else. You can actually line these up and compare them. Okay, I'm going to box it off so it doesn't run into the rest of the problem. So I lined up the decimal points. I'm going to compare the tenths place. Here's my tenths place. They're both 5s, so that didn't do me any good. Then I'll go to the hundredths place. This is a 1 and a 3. Now, if I needed to go on further, I could add another 0 here and add another 3 since it was a 3 repeater. And I could continue that on as long as I needed to. Luckily, we don't. We could stop right there. Okay? So, 3 I know is bigger than 1. But remember, those negatives make everything behave opposite. So if 3 is usually bigger, when it's negative, this is actually less than. Okay? So you can compare by place value, and then just remember that that negative makes everything function in the opposite. All right, let's do another one. Instead of greater than, less than, or equal to, now we have to arrange these numbers in order. Okay, so let's go through our steps. Do I have positives versus negatives? Unfortunately, no, they're all negatives, so that trick doesn't work. Can I compare my whole numbers? So here I've got -2 and some stuff, -2 and some stuff, -1 and some stuff. I don't care about any of the stuffs. I'm comparing 2, 2, and 1, or -2, -2, and -1. This -1 is bigger than the -2s. So I know that this one, without having to do any calculations, I know that this one will be the greatest number on my list. Well, that makes life easy because now I only have 2 numbers I have to compare. So I've got 0.46 and I've got 22/45. I think this 22/45 is going to a decimal. So 22 divided by 45, just the way I saw it, we get 0.488888. Remember, this is the calculator's way of showing it's a repeater. It rounded it. So this is going to be -2.48 with the bar over the 8. All right, now let's compare. I'm going over here where I got a little bit more room. So I'm going to have 2.46 and 2.4888888888. The 2's, they're the same. That doesn't help. The 4's, also the same. That doesn't help. So I can compare my 6 and my 8. Those are the first ones that are different. I know that 6 is less than 8, but we're in negative zone, so 6 is actually greater than 8. So when I'm putting these in order, this one is going to be greater than the other. All right, so this means this one will be the next one on my list. And I'm going back to the original. 2 and 22/45 will be the first on my list. If you want to get fancy and do these brackets around it, I struggle drawing them all the time. Lots of kids just kind of like scribble. We get the point, it's fine. Or come out, scribble, and come in. You'll figure out how to draw them. So again, you want to compare negatives versus positives. You want to check to see if there's whole numbers that you can use to order them. And then you want to get everything into the same form, probably going for decimals. From there, you can do it on the number line, or you can simply compare by place value. And negatives make everything function opposite.